Hello everyone, Carnasa here, and welcome back to Coming Home, and welcome to Saving Private Ziggy Part 2. In the last episode, we sent over Operation Ziggy Extraction to go and rescue that brave Kerbanaut from the murky depths of Hydrus. In this one, we shall be following through with that mission and seeing what the outcome is. But first, we are going to be joining Kerbin 2, which was our original mission that Ziggy Kerman was part of. This was our first crewed interplanetary mission to Hydrus, and it is time to send this mission back home to Rode. We do have a transfer window open up at the beginning of this episode, so I thought we might as well utilize it. I mean, we don't have enough supplies to wait for another one, so we best get these guys back as soon as possible. But we are firing up those Lancer engines, and you can see we do have an encounter with Rode. Now, it is just a little bit of playing around with maneuver nodes to get ourselves a nice circular orbit once we arrive. That way, it will be much easier for our crew transports to rendezvous with it. Speaking of, here is the new crew transport. This is the Hydrus 7, and this is going to be its test flight. You can see we have two of those Kerbal Atomic aerospike engines, which are glorious. I am so in love with this engine at the moment. It is insanely powerful, and it is also insanely efficient. It has a vacuum-specific impulse of about 750 seconds, and its thrust, well, it is damn powerful enough to get this much larger craft than the Chimera back safely with a propulsive landing. This is just a test mission though, however, so we are not sending up a crew. That would be far too dangerous, and we have killed far too many Kerbals in this series already. Last episode was a little bit of a bummer in that regard, considering we killed 7 in a single mission. But we can see the Hydra 7 is now returning to the surface of Rode after having spent a couple of orbits. And we have fired up those 2 engines, and we are able to propulsively land this craft. No need to worry about parachutes anymore. And with that being done, Kerbin 1, our mission that was sent over to Scaife that we sent back in the last episode, has arrived at Rode. And that means it is time to test out the Hydra for the first time with a crew. But first, we do need to circularize our orbit. Like I was saying, it's much easier to get a rendezvous if we have a nice circular orbit, which is what we are going to be doing. Those Lancer engines are more than capable, and we have more than enough fuel to get us into a nice low Rode orbit. But there we can see the Hydra 7 has met up with Kerbin 1. So Hydra 7, so named because it has 6 legs. Originally, it was going to be Hydra 6, but I went through a different iteration and I decided, yeah, let's just add a 1 to the end and call it Hydra 7. But anyway, that was the moment where I realized I forgot to put any science storage containers on the Hydra. So, what we are going to be doing is we are getting Phineas Kerman out of that craft, and we are going to clear some space in the cargo container. We're going to get rid of that nuclear engine and several of the radiators. Hopefully nothing blows up with those 2 rather hot aerospike engines at the bottom. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I needed to make room in that cargo container for what I am about to do. I want to grab the landing module that we sent down to Sindo. I want to stuff it in that cargo container, and I want to bring that back down with us. That was much easier said than done, purely due to the fact that we have nothing to attach that lander module to. The only thing that we have is just the cargo doors holding it in, and it caused a bit of an explosion, but luckily nothing too crucial was broken. Now what we're going to be doing is we are going to be sending ourselves back down to Rode. Now, I did mention on Discord that I had to wait in Rode orbit for a long time with no time warp. That is because when you time warp with 2 craft next to each other, one will float through the other one, so that is why that happened. And something blew up there, but you can see we are able to successfully land the Hydra yet again. And it was nothing important that broke, which meant this was a completely successful mission. You can see we have that landing module brought safely back down with us, and we gained an awful lot of science. I imagine that landing module will be placed in a museum or something for the rest of its days. But now what we are going to be doing is we are going to be turning to Operation Ziggy Extraction, and this is going to be the vast majority of the rest of this episode, because that's what this is all about. It is saving Private Ziggy, and the first module to arrive at Hydrus happens to be the construction port. This is going to be able to construct craft around Hydrus, which is going to be glorious. We are going to hopefully not this episode, but in future episodes, maybe set up some kind of self-sustainable base around Hydrus. Now that I got all of that science from the Return of Kerbin 1, I was able to unlock the last piece of the puzzle that I needed in order to make something completely self-sustainable. So that is going to be very exciting in future episodes. But now, we are with the main mission. This is Port Hydrus, and this contains all the components that we are going to require to save Ziggy Kerman from the surface of Hydrus. It has 2 of those rovers, it has 2 landers, and it has a space station core as well, which is what we are going to be building things from in Hydrus orbit. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. But we are slowing ourselves down now. Our orbit was quite inclined when I arrived. I did fix that up so that we could get a nice equatorial orbit. I keep saying it. I feel like it's a lot easier if you have a nice circular equatorial orbit to rendezvous craft together. And that's exactly why I did that. And you can see we do have quite an inclined orbit here, but I do fix that. Do not worry. So, the next part that's going to arrive is going to be the building supplies. This is a craft that just has a load of material kits, a load of specialized parts, and some liquid fuel and oxidizers, so we can start constructing some new spacecraft around Hydrus. So, Port Hydrus does actually contain an engineer bay, which is going to be crucial. And on the crewed mission that I have sent along, which we will be seeing momentarily, I have brought along an awful lot of engineers. And Ziggy Kerman, or Ziggy Kerman the second, I should say, because it is the second. He has died once already in this series. He is an engineer as well, so we will have an additional engineer should we rescue him from the surface of Hydrus. Here I am plotting out a maneuver to rendezvous those supplies with the original mission. I haven't rendezvoused the construction port yet, just because later on in this episode, I did do a little bit of rearranging after we sent some of the components down to the surface of Hydrus, just so that I could find a nice space to put that construction port on. But there we go, we can see the main Port Hydrus has come into view now, and we are attempting to slow down before we release this payload at the top. Basically, the Juno class is just that engine cluster at the bottom with that truss. I am going to have detachable payloads that we can attach to this and reuse that engine over and over again. Reusability is, well, it has been quite an important feature in this series, and having a reusable interplanetary tug I thought was a really cool idea. We could just take things apart, and that being said, the tug that is on top of Port Hydrus right now is also going to be sent away once we have removed those rovers from it. But here we have the crew arriving at Hydrus. They have spent a long time in transit getting over here, but luckily this spacecraft is more than equipped to be able to deal with their needs for quite some time. It is rather spacious, and this also features a detachable segment as well. So only the top of this spacecraft is going to dock to Port Hydrus. Here once again we are planning out our maneuver so that we can rendezvous with Port Hydrus, a 0.4 kilometer difference. That is rather nice. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it here, but it is there just over Hydrus as we are attempting to slow this down. Once again, blasting that space station with radiation from that nuclear aerospike. I would like to imagine that our spacecraft have adequate radiation shielding, because I am really bad at pointing nuclear engines at Kerbals and firing them up. So, here is the module that detaches, and we can see we are attempting to dock it. Docking autopilot was not working for me here, so I had to do this manually. And as people have seen before, my docking skills leave a lot to be desired. Now that we have docked that, we are going to send this transfer stage into a slightly higher orbit. That way it isn't going to remain around the space station the entire time, and hopefully give me a few better frames. But now that we have yeeted that transfer stage away, it is time to get our brave pilots onto the 2 rovers and the return module that we need to send our crew back to Port Hydrus. These rovers are incapable of achieving orbit once they have landed on Hydrus, so we do need a separate craft to successfully return them to orbit, which is that 3rd spacecraft that looks a little bit like a Chimera, but it is not a Chimera, it is a completely new design. But here we go, we are lowering our orbit with the rovers due to the fact that I feel like it will be much safer if we are in a lower orbit once we attempt to try and land these on the surface. Now this next shot is probably my all-time favorite shot that I've ever done in Kerbal Space Program. I was so in love with this, using camera tools, using the dogfight function, targeting the other rover whilst we flew past it. Just provided such a grand, epic, cinematic experience. I love this, honestly, I really love this. But yes, we are sending these two rovers on their way to the surface, where hopefully they will be able to locate the last known location of Ziggy Kerman and extract him from the ground that did swallow him all those episodes ago. But of course, we do have the return module that we do need to send down as well, so Damien von Kerman has boarded this. I don't actually have a name for this craft yet. If anyone has a suggestion, why not leave them in the comments? I feel like I've not said that in a while. I have been naming all of my own craft recently. And same with Port Hydrus. It's called Port Hydrus at the moment, but I'm sure someone might be able to come up with a better name. So if you do have a better name, why not leave those in the comments? Here we can see this craft, this yet to be named craft, floating, flying, screaming over one of those rovers, and it is on its way to the surface of Hydrus, as are these two rovers. Here we are inside the cockpit of one of those, and we get a beautiful screen layout so we can check all of the important statistics, all of the important details that we do need to know in order to land one of these rovers successfully on the surface of Hydrus. And they may be called rovers, but they can fly. And they may be called the rover, but that is in fact an acronym for this craft. The Road Hover and Operating Vehicle Exploration Rover. And I would like to give a big thanks to Rasvos, aka Pesky Bird, for coming up with that name for this craft. But here we can see we are flying through the mountainous ranges of Hydrus, and we do a little bit of a flip, a little bit of a wonky maneuver. This was mostly quite easy to control, however, sometimes it did have a little bit of a mind of its own, as we did just see there. But you can see we are flying past the floaty lands, and we do a little bit of another flip. Yes, I did just say they were easy to control. Honestly, they are. They really are. I think I was just piloting them very, very badly. I am not the best of pilots at all. I will be the first to admit that I'm really not that great at piloting in this game, which is why I get MechJeb to do most everything for me. I mean, I can do it, but MechJeb is just a lot better than me. Anyway, we have touched down very close to the location of the flag that was planted for Hydrus 1, the mission that Ziggy Kerman was part of. So we are going to park up the first of the rovers. We are going to leave it here whilst we wait for the rest of the Operation Ziggy Extraction mission to make their way over to this landing site. Here we have the second rover entering Hydrus' atmosphere and attempting to fly across the lake that did swallow Ziggy Kerman, on its way to meet up with Hexa Kerman, who was piloting that original rover, and the rover and the flag, of course. But there we go, we can see we are coming down, really not far away from it now. It was rather easy to get this landing spot due to the fact that, well, we could fly most of the way if we had to, and these things can fly quite fast. They can go up to about 150 meters a second, which is quite insane. But once again, we have touched down with the second of these, and we are just going to use the rover functionality of this to drive it over a little bit closer, because it's a lot easier driving than flying. But there we have it. They are connected, and we are finally bringing down the return module. This was a little bit harder to get closer because, well, we had to rely on landing from orbit, but we managed to get it less than 2 kilometers away. I think it was about 1.9 kilometers. We also seem to be having a bit of trouble with ladders on Hydrus. Yes, poor Damien von Kerman was having a bit of a tough time getting down to the surface of Hydrus from this return module. And even getting back up again, as can be demonstrated right now, well, it wasn't going too well. Fortunately, we are able to use our RCS monopropellant and a little bit of a jump to give us a boost to jump back up to the hatch of this module, as we can see Damien von Kerman doing right now. And we were able to board that. This could lead to a problem when we want to pick up surface samples from the surface of Hydrus down the line, due to the fact when a Kerbal picks up a surface sample and they place it in their pocket, they become a lot heavier and it makes it a lot harder to jump and jetpack around like we did with Damien von Kerman then. Well, that's an issue that I'm going to have to deal with in the future. Right now, we are being treated to a little bit of a panorama of Hydrus. This is the area we are going to have to scout out in order to locate Ziggy Kerman. And it's also just to highlight the fact how close, or how far you might even say, the rovers and the return module were from each other. There we go, the rovers have just come into view on the left over there. So it wasn't that far, like I said earlier on, just under 2 kilometers. It could have been closer, but targeted landings in atmosphere really aren't my forte. I am using trajectories, but I think I have got that mod incorrectly configured because I follow the trajectory and it doesn't really do anything. But now we are going to return to Port Hydrus and we are going to be doing that little bit of a re-maneuver, a reshuffle of the modules on this craft so that I can fit the docking port on. Once again, we are going to be getting rid of that Juna-class interplanetary tug. I did wait until it was over 500 meters away, so hopefully that should mitigate most of the radiation that we are going to be blasting towards this space station with those 7 liquid core NTRs. Yes, I do not want to be giving my Kerbals all kinds of radiation poisoning, but you can see we have detached the supplies module and the return module that should be able to get us back to road, and we are going to maneuver them in different locations. The supplies module is going to go where the truss originally was, and we are just going to move that return module around to the side. That way, I am going to be able to place this construction port on the top of the space station. Yes, no, that's where it's going to go. And what we are doing here is we are getting one of our Kerbonauts out and we are going to disassemble this egg-shaped construction. It's a bit of a flat egg. It's not quite like the egg in Kerbal Gets Real, but it is a little bit egg-shaped nonetheless, because I don't want to be leaving this debris floating around in Hydrus orbit. With that done, we are going to be able to place this construction port on top. Now, the reason why I wanted this on top was so that when we construct craft, they are going to have enough room to be released. We aren't going to be hitting any vital parts of the space station when we release them, but that is the reshuffle all done. And now we can turn back to the surface of Hydrus and we can find Ziggy Kerman. Here we have the 2 rovers, their rotors spinning up, and they are going to take off in unison. They are going together and they are going to scout out different locations on this massive lake bed. 2 rovers are, of course, better than 1 when it comes to scouting out an entire lake to find a lost Kerbal. Yes, that is really why I sent 2. It wasn't just so that I could balance the center of mass on Port Hydrus. Definitely not. We wanted 2 of these so it was easier to cover a lot of ground a lot faster. But Pexa Kerman, in this current rover, believes he has seen something on the surface. So he is going to be landing his rover and he is going to be investigating further and see what he can find in the marshy depths below. As you can see with Lynx's parallax shaders, it does look like a very boggy marsh. The drills have deployed, and we are going to start searching for Ziggy Kerman after all this time. And there he is! I did not know how to do this, so I went into the save file and I edited the save file so that Ziggy Kerman was part of this craft, and then I got him out and I used his RCS thruster to launch him up, because I was hoping he'd fall on the ground and he wouldn't get up, and that way it looks like he was lying on the ground and we drilled him out. However, I felt like having him fly from the sky might look a bit funnier, so I left that in. Anyway, that was Pexa Kerman, jumping for joy then that we have recovered Ziggy Kerman too. So these 2 are of course going to get back into the rover and they are going to make their way over to the return module. The drills have been retracted and we are going to take off yet again in the rover. Ziggy Kerman, who has spent an awful long time on Hydrus, is very excited to get back to some kind of civilization. I'm not entirely sure what he did for food. Ziggy Kerman, if you are watching this video, what did you do for food? Leave it in a comment below. Tell us how you survived on the surface of Hydrus for almost 2 years with no outside help. It's a little bit like The Martian. I've not actually seen that film, but I know he gets stranded on Mars. So, yes, how did you do it, Ziggy? But we are back, and we are going to be launching the return module using one of the Raptor surface variant engines that comes with the Tundra Exploration mod. It was a very good engine for the job of getting our return module off of the surface of Hydrus and back into orbit. We do also have 4 Raptor vacuum variants on here for once we do achieve orbit. They are a little bit more efficient in vacuum, and I just felt like, yeah, we want as much efficiency as possible. This craft as well is able to refuel on Hydrus, which is what it did. So it does have a couple of drills and an ISRU processing facility. But we have made our way back to Port Hydrus. Ziggy Kerman has been saved from the surface, and he is back amongst civilization for the first time in years. Now it is just a quick docking maneuver to get this craft back onto Port Hydrus, and then Ziggy Kerman can phone home the first time in a long time. And once again, we are just going to see Port Hydrus as it completes its orbit around the planet Hydrus. And we are done, for the most part, with saving Private Ziggy. Now all we have to do is, at the next transfer window, send him back along to Road. But that won't happen for quite some time. You may have noticed that we only sent one rover back up to, well, the crew of one rover back up to Port Hydrus. That's because we left Tuck Kerman on the surface to go exploring. He wanted to go and explore some of the floaty lands and see some of the sites that Hydrus did have to offer. And I have to say, Lynx has done a fantastic job with this biome. It looks amazing. Flying this rover, this helicopter-like device through those floaty lands is honestly one of the funnest things I have ever done in Kerbal Space Program. It was great. Anyway, we now have the construction module on Port Hydrus, so we are going to be building our first ever thing in interplanetary space. Well, it's not really interplanetary space, but I mean, we're going to be building our first thing outside of the sphere of influence of Road. And what this is going to be is a factory module for Port Hydrus. I did mention earlier, I gained some more science so I can make self-sustainable colonies. This is going to be able to help us do that. With this module, we will now be able to produce material kits and specialized parts at Port Hydrus. Then all we need to do is feed it the materials that it requires and also feed it liquid fuel and oxygen, and then we should permanently be able to build new stuff from Hydrus, never having to send resupply missions from Road. That is the goal, and I really want to be able to do that, and I'm hoping I brought enough material kits and supplies along with that first supplies module to be able to do that. I don't know though. We will have to find out when it comes to that. So now we are going to finish this episode off with the craft that we started with. Kerbin 2 has arrived at Road. And this is, of course, the mission that Ziggy Kerman was on originally. So we are bringing our orbit nice and close. And as I mentioned earlier on, what I want to do is try and make this as circular as possible. That way, when we relaunch a new Hydra, we are going to be able to rendezvous with this craft very easily indeed. This craft, hopefully, should gain me quite a lot of science, considering this landed not just on Hydrus, it landed on Hydron as well, which is going to be a fantastic boon for science. And then that way, I should hopefully have some very, very nice stuff in the next episode. Well, we can see the Harpy, not the Harpy was the first series of rockets that I launched in this series. The Hydra, another Greek mythological creature, has met up with the Kerbin 2, yes. And this time, I did remember to place science storage modules on here, so we didn't have to do anything funky with that landing module. No, we could just transfer the experiments across, but here we go. We have successfully touched down again, and that will be the end of this episode. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, why not give it a like? If you've really enjoyed it and want to keep up with the content on my channel, please do consider subscribing. I'd like to give a big thanks to Bible Guy and the rest of my patrons for their continued support, and I have been Carnasa, and I will see you later.